Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, Mayor.
Thanks for joining us. A few more to come in. We had a late night last night, as you heard. So they're coming in a little punchy.
I blame you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, Maurice too. Maurice, it's also your fault.
Tried to run an efficient meeting, but you know, y'all like to talk.
It's not your fault. You keep saying that this week as if it's us.
All right.
Morning, friends.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Happy birthday after day. I hope you partied really hard last night at midnight or whatever.
It was super fun.
Yeah. You know how to have a good time, Karen.
Oh, yeah. Nothing like a Wednesday birthday.
It's happened to me too. It happens to all of us mathematically eventually.
Eventually.
Condolences.
Okay, well, I know we have more council members coming in, so we will see what happens, but we're excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're sorry it's virtual. A lot of factors played into that decision, and we're grateful that you're flexible and willing to work with us. Do want us to do some introductions because I'm not sure everybody knows everybody. So when I call on you, if you would tell us your name and anything you'd like to share with us. But first off, I want to say congratulations to several of our elected officials. How wonderful. We're very, very pleased, and I'm grateful for your willingness to serve and for the very positive campaigns that you ran. So we will start off with, do we say this Congresswoman-elect Valerie Foushee, or do we call you Senator Foushee still?
Good morning. You call me Senator Foushee. And I will be Senator Foushee 12/31/22. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for your well wishes.
Thank you.
Matter of fact, we are back in session.
Oh, that's true. You are. There we go. And we have Representative Verla Insko with us this morning. Good morning. All right. Representative Meyer or Senator-elect Meyer.
I think I feel like Senator Foushee that like you don't take the next one for granted, so you don't jump onto that title till it's ready. But thank you. Good morning. It's great to see everyone.
Good to see you. And Representative Vernetta Alston.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all.
Good to see you too. All right. I think that covers our electeds, but we do have joining us. We have Bo Mills from Metro Mayors.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all.
And we have Erin Winia from the League of Municipalities. There's her smiley face. There we go. And then I will call on council members as I see you, unless I've gotten any of the other electeds here. There we go. Mayor Pro Tem.
Good morning, everyone. Karen Stegman, Mayor Pro Tem. Good to see you.
Then I have Ms. Anderson.
Morning, Jess Anderson.
And I have Ms. Berry.
Good morning and extended birthday celebrations to Karen Stegman, who was with us for a very long time yesterday.
Councilmember Ty Wynn can't be with us this morning. His job, he had to drive out early this morning, he told me. So, so then we have Ms. Miller Foushee.
Morning, everyone. Paris Miller Foushee.
And we have Mr. Parker.
Good morning, Michael Parker. Nice to see you all.
And we have Ms. Ryan.
Hi, thanks for joining us, everyone. Amy Ryan.
Mr. Searing.
I'm Saren. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, great, thank you. We have our manager.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maurice Jones, Town Manager. Welcome.
And we have our two assistant managers here with us today, Ms. Nerdlinger.
Hi, Mary Jane Nerdlinger, Deputy Manager.
And Ms. Clark.
Good morning, everyone. Lauren Clark, Deputy Town Manager.
We have our attorney, Ms. Anderson.
Good morning, Ann Anderson, Town Attorney. I'm sorry I'm not on screen. I'm still recovering from COVID. I'm a late recipient of COVID these days, and so I'll probably come on screen a little bit later.
Okay.
But good morning to everyone.
I think we have both our clerks. I've got Amy Herby too, I'm not sure, and Miss and Sabrina Oliver there.
Good morning all. Sabrina Oliver, Communications Director and Town Clerk.
And Scott Clark is our IT Director. I think he's helping us with the meeting here. All right. Did I miss anybody? Jeannie. Sorry, Jeannie's taking our notes. Poor Jeannie, she had to schedule all this. Jeannie.
Good morning, everyone.
My Jeannie. Everyone needs one. Thank you for helping put all this together, and thank you for being flexible too, Jeannie. She had to change, just pivot and go. So thank you for that. We are going to start off with a few town updates to share with you. And then we're asking you to share with us, and you're welcome to ask questions anywhere along the line. I tried to divide up some of the topics so you weren't just hearing from me, but we're going to start off with the pandemic response and recovery. Ms. Anderson.
Yeah, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share with you what we've been doing. There's so much that I'm going to refer to my notes, so you can take that as a good thing or a bad thing, as the case may be. During the pandemic, the town and our partners throughout the county worked closely together to coordinate our efforts, which I think really resulted in better outcomes. Our efforts have been wide-ranging. This morning, we're going to highlight several key programs. During the pandemic, we worked together with the Orange County Department of Housing and Community Development and the towns of Carrboro and Hillsborough to establish the Housing Helpline. Since the beginning of the pandemic, more than 1,800 households in Orange County have received assistance, and more than $7.8 million of federal, state, and local funds have been allocated to households needing assistance. At the start of the pandemic, we expanded an existing food bank at the Eubanks Park and Ride in partnership with the North Carolina Food Bank, Porch, and others, where we've served 250 to 300 households per week, and this is still ongoing. Also, in response to the need for childcare and scholastic support when school buildings were closed, the town partnered with the YMCA and the Refugee Community Partners to launch an innovative neighborhood support circles program. Using CARES Act funding, the town helped hire caregivers to support 20 circles of low-income families. In addition to keeping people safe, housed, and fed, we've been working hard to support robust economic recovery and build community resilience with significant focus on our underserved members. To that end, in January 2021, the town adopted our Revive Economic Recovery and Resiliency Plan, which is intended to lay a solid foundation for long-term success and transformation. Ultimately, Chapel Hill is seeking to rebuild its local economy in a more inclusive and equitable manner after the pandemic by building on job creation, growing office space, and strengthening of retail sectors to further support a strong and vibrant economy. In June 2021, the town invested $200,000 in American Rescue Plan monies to get the plan underway. Early efforts have included hosting job fairs to help employers hire staff as they reopened. Also, the program has provided opportunity grants totaling $1,602,250 to 66 different companies. The grants ranged from $1,000 micro grants to $5,000 small business grants. Creating a more diverse employer base is a significant goal of our plan. And so we were pleased that the results were that the funding went to 73% women-owned businesses, 44% are BIPOC owned, 25% are Black owned, 10% Latino, and 8% Asian. 16% are owned by non-English speakers. Other exciting program that we've partnered on is the Summer Careers Academy, which will connect youth with skills, employers, and a compelling career path. We're optimistic about the town's future. Our budget is in good shape. However, needless to say, many in our community are still struggling. So we appreciate any and all help from the state and federal level that we can receive. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to share a little bit about economic development. As you heard, the town's in pretty good shape financially. Our manager and team did did a really great job of keeping our budget intact, not knowing what the future would be or how long we would be in COVID. But we did emerge with a hefty fund balance because we had some frozen positions and it was difficult to hire folks. But the interesting fact is our sales tax numbers have gone from us being one of the worst in the state per capita for sales tax to a really big number. We think this is due to several factors. Having Wegmans and Target certainly help, but also people were ordering from home. And when you order through services like Amazon, we get credit for the sales tax. Those sales tax numbers have kept increasing. One of our goals in the town of Chapel Hill has been to diversify our tax base by building in more commercial opportunities so that we have jobs here, people can live and work here in other places besides the university and the hospital, and to get some retail going here. So we did have better sales tax numbers. That diversifies our tax base, so we're not constantly dependent on property taxes, which when you raise those, that can push people out of our community. So that was really good. We worked on downtown revitalization. We have a program with the university called Downtown Together. These are great steps that we've been taking finally together to make downtown, which is the front porch, as they say, to the UNC, but it's the backbone of our economy, to be a more 12-month economy. And how to figure out we need more people who are there 12 months of the year, which means jobs downtown and adults living downtown, so that we can help those businesses that have been struggling. We also did the expanded Sidewalks program downtown to help our businesses, mostly restaurants and such, expand to allow for outdoor seating so that people felt comfortable. It was very successful. We got art blasted a couple of times on our outdoor expanded sidewalks, which we thought was fabulous. Right now, you'll see that all the expanded sidewalks have been pulled up for the time being as West Franklin is being repaved. We worked in collaboration with NCDOT to come up with a plan to narrow West Franklin down to 2 lanes of traffic with a center lane and to have bike lanes and other expanded sidewalk opportunities in the future. We plan on taking over West Franklin Street, actually a lot of Franklin Street from DOT, so that we can do better pedestrian safety initiatives such as planter boxes to block off instead of those orange cones and barriers, and to make just a very different feel downtown other than just a throughput. So we're studying other towns. We've seen some things they've done, and we're going to invest in those. I don't know if you've been downtown recently, but we moved ahead with our parking deck, which was to combine 2 old parking decks and a surface lot into 1 newer deck. UNC has purchased or is contributing to over 100 spaces in the new deck as they are moving their admissions office to Franklin Street, which will bring over 50,000 unique visitors to our town every year. And they will now have a visible place to park. It will have the new technology. In doing so, it's not just about a parking deck, as we say. We freed up a footprint to put in a new wet lab building. This was in conjunction with Grubb Properties in the Opportunity Zone. Again, all the energy and spinoff energy coming from UNC, which has over $1 billion a year of research money coming in, needs to have a place to do that kind of work that's not on campus. So they're very excited about this opportunity as well. What we call lovingly the Old Cvs Tower, or if you've been here a while, the old NCMB Plaza, or we refer to it right now as the 136, 137 building, also by Grubb Properties, was purchased and is being revamped. We will be moving our accelerator launch into this space along with more co-working areas, and NC Bio is also taking a lease in this building, as well as a few other companies. So we're going to have those workers downtown, and we're very excited about that. The Revive dollars you heard about coming out of some of our Arpa funding have really helped some of these businesses downtown to figure out a better strategy for staying in business, even with COVID-like systems. But so downtown's coming all together. We're very excited about that. And we have other opportunities around town. I'm sure you've seen some of the construction going on. But when we zoned the north part of Chapel Hill to be an enterprise zone, it attracted some great companies, one of them being the NC North Carolina Organ Donor Association. Their state headquarters is being developed right now. We have another group that has purchased a property that's going to be flexible commercial space. And then we have the family fun zone being constructed right now, which will have an arcade, putt-putt, and electric go-karts going on up there. Caraway is underway with a self-storage building and their second apartment phase as they are increasing their space around the drive-in. The drive-in will stay and it'll be paved, so that will, it's been very popular, by the way. And when we survey people, they come from all over to this drive-in. They come from Fayetteville, they come from Greensboro. It's been a fascinating experience. So those are some of the things we have going on. I know you were aware of some of the incentives we did with WellDOT, which is expanding now that COVID has slowed down. They're expanding and hiring. Wegmans is knocking it out of the park with sales, which we're really pleased about. Caraway got the incentive to help make the Eubanks Road a much nicer experience and able to handle all the traffic. And then you've seen the Glen Lennox Gwendolyn building go up, and it's attracted a lot of interest, although the commercial market for regular commercial space is still a little tentative because people aren't sure how people are coming back to work. But they're starting their second building anyway because they feel the future is positive. So with that, we'll move to affordable housing. Ms. Stegman.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you all know, of course, housing is a significant concern. There's a housing crisis nationally in the state, and of course, in Chapel Hill, we know housing costs have always been high, and we've seen that significantly increase during the pandemic. It's also a top priority for the council, and we've been doing a lot for affordable housing. We have a portfolio of over $15 million in local and federal funding to support our initiatives. Over the last 5 years, we've developed 195 new units and preserved almost 900 units of affordable housing, which is, I think, certainly more than any council in the past, but there's still so much more to do. As you, I'm sure, recall, we passed an affordable housing bond in 2018, and we have allocated a little over $6 million of that so far. And the money is going to lead to eventually about 325 new affordable units in Chapel Hill, going to organizations like Empowerment, CASA, Habitat for Humanity, Self-Help, DHIC, and Pee Wee Homes. So a real mix of apartments and housing, tiny homes. So that's all really exciting progress. We also have several projects, I need more coffee, projects in the pipeline using town-owned land, which is a key strategy for us to make the cost of developing affordable housing lower. And so those include 2200 Homestead Road, Trinity Court, which is a redevelopment of our aging public housing, and new apartments on J Street. And of those, Trinity Court and J Street, and then also DHIC project in Caraway that the mayor was talking about, have all applied for 9% LIHTC funding, and they've made it through the first round, and we'll be eagerly awaiting the results of those applications in July, August, soon. And also during the pandemic, specifically partnered with the county and Carrboro and Hillsborough on emergency housing assistance. Through that program, $3.4 million went to assist 851 households in Chapel Hill to help keep them in their homes through the pandemic. And finally, we are especially concerned about the vulnerability of our manufactured housing communities in Chapel Hill. We've been working hard with the county and other jurisdictions on a countywide action plan to come up with some both proactive and, if it comes to it, reactive strategies to help support families and keep them keep them housed. We're looking for more long-term solutions, and certainly help from the state would be really wonderful around that. I know several states have a right of first refusal policy that allows jurisdictions to step in rather than mobile home parks becoming, investments for corporations and whatnot. So love to talk more about that as well. But that's an overview of our investments and efforts of late.
Thank you. During the pandemic, we worked on our climate action plan, and Ms. Ryan's going to share a bit about that.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I'd like to give you a quick update on our climate action efforts. I think my cat Gus may be joining us for that as well, because he's very concerned about that issue. So, addressing climate change and reducing our carbon footprint has been a top priority in Chapel Hill for several years. We were one of the first towns in the U.S. to commit to reducing its own CO2 emissions below 2005 levels, and we signed on as a community to the UN Paris Agreement's carbon reduction goals. Excuse me, Gus. In 2021, we unanimously adopted a climate action and response plan with goals for achieving net zero emissions and 100% clean renewable energy by 2050. I'd like to give a shout out to our staff, especially John Richardson, our resiliency officer, and Brendan Bouma for their great work in planning and implementing these goals. If you want a copy of their plan, I'll show it to you. It is detailed and it's all action oriented. It's really a fabulous piece of work. During this work, we found that 96% of Chapel Hill's emissions come from just two areas: buildings, which contribute 69%, and transportation, which accounts for 26%, making these the top areas of focus as we implement our plan. We're working on two other areas as well: waste, water, and natural resources, and general town resiliency. We've made some good progress in the past couple of years toward our goals. We recently unveiled 3 new electric buses. I know a lot of you were there to see that as part of Chapel Hill Transit's fleet, and we're expanding our greenways and bike lanes to support people getting around without a car. We're transitioning our streetlights to LEDs, which reduced the town's overall energy costs by 5%. We're working with Orange County to create an EV charging mapping tool to support a robust EV charging network. So when we created our plan, we knew that the town as an organization accounts for only around 2% of the town's carbon footprint. We need to use other tools like our land use planning, our development decisions, ordinances, and education to become sustainable and resilient across the whole community. So as a result, through our development review process, we work with developers to make sure future sites will be solar ready and include EV charging stations. We're also revamping our green building standards, and we'll be incorporating more green stormwater and other infrastructure as we update our land use management ordinance. And finally, we're fortunate to have strong community partners, including OWASA and UNC, with whom we're working closely on these issues. So like other local governments, we need the help of leaders at the state and federal level and our utility partners to achieve our goals for carbon neutrality, environmental protection, and resilience. Some key ways you can help our local work include continued support for North Carolina to follow Virginia and other states by joining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, RGGI, to help us significantly reduce emissions from power generation across our region. Advocating for General Assembly bills that support renewable energy and clean energy upgrades at the local level. These include HB 842, the solar HOA deed clarifications, HB 245, the Efficient Government Buildings and Savings Act, and SB 358, the CPACE program. Supporting initiatives like Duke Energy's Clean Source Advantage program, which will help provide greater community investment opportunities in renewables. Continuing and enhancing STIP allocations to help us build the green mobility infrastructure that we're looking for. And implementing the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act with an eye to climate and working toward more budget funding for clean energy, stormwater management, and green transportation. Chapel Hill's committed to achieving these goals and being part of larger regional and national solutions to combat climate change. Again, the staff has assembled a detailed climate action plan, which is an amazing document, and be happy to share that with you or a copy of our climate action plan. So thanks for your time, for your service, and for your help in making our goals of climate leadership a reality.
Thank you. And now we have transportation updates from Mr. Parker.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome again. We have a lot going on, so I'll try to be both brief and quick. But in terms of our road network, in terms of pedestrian and bike safety, the town back in the fall approved our first Vision Zero resolution, which prioritizes bike and pedestrian safety in the review of new development projects, among other things. And then a couple of weeks ago, we began the process of actually changing our ordinances to implement the goals that we adopted in that Vision Zero resolution. So we recently, as just examples, changed the townwide speed limit on the roads that we actually control to a default of 25 miles an hour down from a default of 35 miles an hour, because we know that if there are bike and ped collisions with cars, speed is a critical determinant of the degree to which people are seriously injured or even killed. We have also passed our first, and something the state, unlike many other states, has not done, we passed our first anti-dooring ordinance to provide protection for bicyclists. We had a tragic incident this past winter where an individual was struck an open door, thrown from his bicycle, and was actually killed. So we're working hard to make sure those kinds of things never happen again, and that we provide the safest possible environment for folks who are walking or riding bicycles or anything like that. As the mayor mentioned, we are also taking steps to make Franklin Street both safer and more attractive by working with NCDOT as part of the restriping initiative, which you will see in full bloom in about a week and a half, but we are restriping it, putting it on a so-called road diet, putting in protected bike lanes, again, to make it both more congenial, but more importantly, safer for bicyclists and to a lesser extent, pedestrians. As many of you know, particularly Representative Insco, who is living it on a daily basis, we are hard at work on the Estes improvements, which when they're done, and we apologize, we know what an inconvenience it is for the folks who live up there, but that will take probably another year or so. But by the time it's done, we will have protected bike lanes, pedestrian walkways. It will be both much more conducive to bicycling and walking, and also, most importantly, much safer. So we've got all of those kinds of things going on. Chapel Hill Transit continues to punch well above its weight. I always brag on Chapel Hill Transit. We remain the second largest transit system in the entire state behind Charlotte in terms of ridership. And up until recently, we were the largest fare-free transit system in the entire nation, and a pioneer in doing so. As Pam, as our mayor mentioned, and I think Ms. Ryan mentioned as well, we have gotten the first 3 electric buses in our fleet, which, in spite of their small number so far, still puts us #1 in the triangle in terms of electrification of the fleet. We have 8 more on order, and we were just informed that we are in the runway to get more funding for electric buses regionally through some of the work that Congressman Price has been doing for us in Washington. So we're really excited about that. The last thing I want to touch on is our BRT project. That's the North-South BRT. For those who may not know, will run from the Eubanks Park and Ride in the north to Southern Village Park and Ride in the south. And that has been moving ahead. And again, talking about Chapel Hill punching above its weight, when that is implemented, we would be the smallest community in the country with a BRT. But we have some challenges there, and we could really use our state legislators' help. We are short money in terms of the local match. This is part of the Small Starts program, which provides up to $100 million. But the total price of the project with inflation and everything is about $150 million right now. We have about $15 million in from local funds from our Orange County Transit Plan, but we are hoping to get the remainder of the local match of about $35 million from the state. The problem there is twofold. One, the spot process, because of the difficulties NCDOT has had, has been deferred for a couple of years. So it means that now we have, if we continue to depend on state funds, at the earliest, we're going to have to wait a couple of more years before we can build construction and move to completion. The second challenge is that under the formula that NCDOT uses, there is very limited funding for anything but highway projects at the state level. And so there is enormous, intense competition for projects like our BRT to get that funding because the pool is so small. So hopefully, over time, working with the legislature and NCDOT, we can have the rules changed so that there is more funding allocated to non-highway projects that would enable us to move forward with the BRT and some of the other things that we're trying to accomplish in Chapel Hill with transit. Two other points I'll make. One, we're very grateful that this year's budget fully funded the Smap funding, which provides operating support to our transit system and many others. But we also know that's been variable. In the past couple of years, there wasn't Smap funding. So again, if our legislators can help provide stability and certainty in our Smap funding for us and for the transit operators around the state, that's critically important. And lastly, getting back to some sort of going full circle to some of our bike and ped safety efforts, current state rules prohibit bike or ped only projects. Bike and ped projects can only be funded in conjunction with highway projects. And so again, we need legislative help so that there is state funding for purely bike and ped projects. So once again, I want to thank our legislative delegation for all the support you've provided to us over the years. We take enormous pride in our transit and transportation systems in Chapel Hill, and we know we couldn't have done it without the support of legislators like you who have helped provide the funding that we need. So thank you.
Thank you. And this is the last update we'll give, and then we can let you update us. But we wanted to share with you about our ARPA funding. We're trying to be very intentional on how to use these because we want to benefit people who were impacted by the pandemic, but we also want to see an opportunity to be transformative. So we've also given the community a chance to be engaged. Currently, we're looking at projects and programs that fall into several categories, about 25% for affordable housing and homelessness, about 60% for town department needs, such as Parks and Rec, bike and ped and buildings, 10% for human services and our community partners, and 5% for community-based projects, which we're asking community groups to submit a letter of intent. And we're also going to put some money towards digital access. So we're having a good time trying to work all this together with folks, and we'll see more definite decisions by the fall. As we move forward with our $10 million, we were allocated almost 10.6 million, but we spent the 0.6 on our Revive to help our businesses. And then we used our CARES money to help people who needed extra help during the pandemic. So I do want to say a special thank you to Senator Foushee for working on our requests for many years of being able to invest our monies. She got that passed for us on the third round, as she said, third time's a charm. So we appreciate that so much. We wanted to alert you on a couple of things that you may hear about. We are working with the Durham contingent. We had a meeting this week on an area that we call the Cat's Ear. It's in Chapel Hill's planning jurisdiction. It lies in Orange County. It's the triangle-shaped wedge of property north of I-40, sort of behind the Walmart area. And there's a developer who wishes to develop a large tract of about 1,000 homes. And as you know, we don't control OWASA, but OWASA has put in writing that they are not interested in serving this area because they don't want to bore under I-40. So meanwhile, we're working with the city of Durham to figure out if there's a path that we can work together on, because the developer and the landowner have hired attorneys to put language in a bill that's already passed the House, but is in the Senate now, to give landowners the right to ask for annexation from anybody they wish to ask annexation from. This would affect the entire state. So we're very concerned about not doing this kind of language for a fix between jurisdictions who are willing to work together to find a better outcome and solution for this situation. So we just alert you that that may be coming forward. We are working hard to try to make sure that that's not what's going to happen in the short session, but it's a conversation that's ongoing that you need to be aware of. So do our representatives or our senator have things they wish to share with us?
Yeah, I have some questions if that would be okay. ma'am.
Sure, that'd be fine. And we're going to have updates from the league and the Metro Mayors too, but please go ahead.
Sure, if that's okay. Well, thank you all first for the updates and for all the work that you do, and for really being. You mentioned Franklin Street was the backbone of your economy, but you all are the backbone of all of your residents and their safety and all the basic services. So just thank you for all that you do. On that bill, obviously it's in the Senate, you said, but you don't happen to know what bill that was that you think?
Yeah, it's 425, which isn't really related to this topic, but that's what they'd like to tag it on to.
Okay, sure, thank you. On the Smap funding, I was certainly relieved when that funding was restored after it was tampered with in 2020. And but I was in the legislature when that happened, but I wanted to know historically, is that a source of funds that has historically been a target for when the DOT feels like their money is short, that they kind of use that as a lever to. Do they tamper with Smap funding kind of historically, I guess is my question, or is your kind of comment about wanting the funding to be stable just a reflection of what we've seen in the last couple of years? That was one question I had.
Mr. Parker, yeah, you can give.
Yeah, I'd have to get you, I'll have to work with Brian Litchfield. We can get you all the details, but my understanding is that even when there has been SMAP funding, the amounts are quite variable. And so, some years we do really well, some years we don't do so well, unlike the federal funding that we get, which isn't as much as we'd like it to be, but it's quite predictable.
Sure.
So, every year when we're trying to budget, we just don't know where we're going to be with SMAP funding.
Got it. Thank you. A couple more, if you'll indulge me. I saw the news about the new dooring policy, and I was curious. I haven't really done any research on it, so appreciate your patience. Is it just a strict liability kind of violation, okay? I didn't know if there was any requirement for any, intent there. If it was just, I see someone came off mute. I'm going to stop.
There's a fine and possible charges for individuals who fling their door open without looking and interact with a bicyclist or pedestrian.
I see.
Representative Alston, this is Ann Anderson. I would say that as with any criminal, ordinance, the burden is still on the government entity to demonstrate the elements of that. So I think intent would be, or at least sort of culpability would certainly be part of what the government would have to prove.
Thank you. And on the housing side, Councilmember Segman, you mentioned the number of wonderful things. I had two related questions on your kind of town-owned property projects, which are exciting, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge lift, and grateful that you're doing it. Maybe you could share with me later by email just the timeline for those projects, and I'm just curious kind of what you're working on. I think it's really exciting, and obviously happy to be supportive across all of these areas, but especially that one. And for the you mentioned the number of units that are kind of on the ground, open, ones that are in the pipeline, and the 325 that you expect to come online at some point in the future. I didn't know and I just don't know, as a town, do you have like a income threshold that you are aiming for, like 60% AMI, 70? Do you all have any kind of just guidelines for yourselves on what kind of projects you prioritize in housing?
That is a great question. We know that, I guess it depends on the type of housing. We have an inclusionary zoning ordinance, which requires 15% for ownership units. Of course, we can't do rental units legally, which would be great for that to change at the state level as well. But when we're when we're kind of negotiating with developers or working through that those are usually at the higher end of the AMI. Those are usually 80%, and we try to get it down to maybe 60, especially if it's rental. But that's always a negotiation. when we are working with our affordable housing partners or our own housing, we really try to serve the lowest AMIs we can and make it fiscally doable. And we also know that kind of, mixed income housing is kind of the best sort of community approach. So we try to kind of vary it, but we were just talking actually last night at our meeting about, we heard, excuse me, from folks who are, working with our sheltered and unsheltered community and folks with lived experience that, homelessness has increased 40% in our county over the last couple of years, and just the needs for folks that under 30% AMI and no AMI, and that's really for so many reasons a tough population to serve, and we're really trying to focus more on that. I don't know if that completely answered your question, but it also depends on our housing partner. Habitat for Humanity has their AMI that they serve. DHIC, serve specific populations in the community. So it also varies by our partner, but we can get you all of that information. We have that for all of our projects.
I was going to say, Jeannie, would you put the link to, we have an affordable housing dashboard that goes into these details. It tracks our projects, it tracks our goals. We hold ourselves accountable, and there's great information. It's easy to read. And I was wondering if Jeannie could put it in the chat box so you guys could have that. We've worked really hard on that. And then CASA also serves a lower AMI, and that's a joint project with Carborough as far as where it's positioned. So that was a fun process to work through as well.
Sure. Thanks for that. And I'll be brief. I'll leave to my senior colleagues to provide more substantive updates. For the short session, I've got a transportation study bill funding. But I know we talked a lot about that. I'm going to try to run that again this year. We have some local workforce housing issues that we're going to try to address in a local bill, along with another local bill related to our fire department that I'm working on. And then I was also last fall appointed to a criminal code recodification working group. So hopefully we can move towards meeting and undertaking that work in earnest here sometime this year. But I'll leave the larger updates to my colleagues. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Representative Insko, I saw you had your hand up earlier. Did you have some questions?
I did have a question about climate change. Y'all are making, you made some significant progress in getting programs developed. Are you working collaboratively with Carborough and Orange County to help spread that countywide, or as much as you can? Or do Carborough and Orange County have programs that are parallel?
I know the county right now is working on their climate action plan. Carborough has one. So they've all gone together, and the county is reorganizing our climate council, which is an interjurisdictional group that will be meeting together kind of based on our Parks Commission to share ideas and to keep each other updated and kind of coordinate our efforts. So that's going through a reorganization right now, which I expect will be complete by the fall.
Great, thank you.
And then there's the climate tax that is put out there by the county that we apply for. Half of the climate tax funds are supposed to be used for the schools. The schools are a great place for doing solar, rooftop, things like that. So they're working towards that. And the other half goes towards applications. And we've applied and received funds. Right now, we're replacing all of the lights at Cedar Falls with LEDs. We've already done our street lights. So going to our parks is next. So those lights that are on the fields burn a lot of energy. And so replacing those out will save, improve our carbon footprint, but also save us a lot of money. So we're going to keep doing that project. So
great, thanks.
Senator, did you have some questions for us?
I did, thank you, and thank you for the updates. My questions are related to affordable housing, and I was wondering if we might get samples of the legislation or ordinances that Council Member Stegman spoke of in terms of what we might offer through our legislative process. So that would be helpful. And then the other question was similar to Representative Austin's as status or updates on where your projected affordable housing units, the status of that, and where particularly the tiny homes might be located.
Yeah. Right. Representative Meyer, did you have questions?
Can you say more about what you think might happen with that annexation and any legislation around that?
Not sure how we're trying to keep it from becoming legislation, I guess, by working together to figure out a different path. But the way we can send you a copy of the proposed language that's come out, and I've alerted Metro mayors and I think the league, I think Aaron's been alerted as well, that this may be a possibility. It's coming through 2 attorneys, Skip Stam, who knows how to work, and he's already given it to Pro Tem Berger, and Bill Bryan from Morningstar, so that they're used to knowing how to work the system, if that makes any sense. I will say this situation is unusual. Durham did not have it on its long range expansion for water and sewer. It would be a heavy lift. They're going to be investigating what that would be. And they have a policy of only providing water and sewer if they annex a property. And so this is in Chapel Hill's jurisdiction. So we're trying to work something out. We're not sure what it is yet. We had our first meeting. We have some assignments the staff are working on. So we're trying to keep it local and figure out a path without it becoming a statewide legislation that any landowner could petition to annex into whichever jurisdiction they so chose, which would affect all cities, especially ones that are right next to each other as they move forward.
I'm not sure that I believe they could pass that as statewide legislation. I think annexation is such a controversial topic within the General Assembly that I'm not sure they could get that through, but I would be more concerned about them passing it as local legislation the same way as they did it with the 751 deal, but that generally requires some cooperation from our part. But as you remember with the impact fees, they just did, they did that without our cooperation. So I'd like to see the language. I'd be happy to talk to former Representative Stam about it and to try and work with others on it.
Senator Woodard has been very involved in this project. He's worked with us to try to have those conversations. Our attorneys are all involved with this. There may be it may be unconstitutional because it's, I'm sorry, I am not a lawyer. It was a consent judgment that formed this area between us. So I'm not trying to alarm you, just trying to alert you as we prefer this not to happen as we're working forward.
Representative Meyer, this is Ann again. I am happy to talk with you about the brutal legal details on this one. And I will send you the relevant language. I don't have your email address, but I'm happy to find that and get that information to you. And if you want to call and talk about it, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it to spare the mayor the torture of it. So I'll just let me know.
I'll put my email address in the chat, and then if you send it to me, we can have a follow-up.
Thank you so much. Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, can we hear from Bo Mills from Metro Mayors?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mayor Heminger, and significantly, Chair of the Metro Mayors, Pam Heminger. Thank you, ma'am. Just a quick update, and then I'll bring my colleague, Aaron Winia, on to join for a quick update from the municipal family. Just to remind everyone, the Metro Mayors is an organization of currently 31 member cities with a real focus on the larger cities in the state. The minimum requirement for population is 25,000. We are laser focused on metro and urban issues. That is our primary purpose. We work together, collaborate, share information, and that also includes both federal and state level advocacy on urban issues. I will tell you that our state is unique. We are the nation's, of the 10 largest states in the United States, we have the largest percentage of rural residents, which I think has a really important and significant impact on the politics in our state, which means it's more important than in probably any other part of the country that we collaborate and work as a team around public policy issues. The Chapel Hill delegation has always been a leader on urban issues, and I think they have all been pounding the tables over the years and trying to cajole and really advocate for urban issues, and we're really fortunate to have the leadership that we have. The other thing that's really important to recognize is our state's future really is around the success of our urban areas. So that means we not only do we need to work with people all across the state, small, rural, urban, large, but we also really need to make sure we do things that help our urban areas be successful and great places to live. Just a quick update on some of the issues that we've worked on and looking ahead. The biggest issue that we are and our cities are dealing with right now is the unprecedented support we've gotten from the federal government. You heard it throughout the presentations from the council members this morning that the federal dollars, both from the CARES Act, from the American Rescue Plan, and then we didn't talk about this, but as the bipartisan infrastructure bill offers incredible, unprecedented, once in a generation opportunities for our local communities to do really extraordinary things around equity, around economic development, around transportation. And we are, I think we're very fortunate in that regard. And Chapel Hill certainly is positioned quite well in that regard. As we look forward to the legislative session, Council Member Parker, you mentioned SMAP and transit and transportation issues. That is always going to be at the top of the list for the Metro Mayors Coalition. We try to focus on as few things as practical, because that's where our greatest impact can be. And then we partner with other organizations. On transit, I wanted to mention one specific thing, and that is your director for transit, Brian Litchfield, is a leader amongst his peers around the state. And we talked about SMAP a moment ago. That is an example where team sport really is important. One of the questions I think Representative Alston asked was, what's the history of SMAP? It has traditionally been a recurring funding source. About 5 years ago, they reduced it. It has taken us 4 years to bring that back to the previous level. It is a recurring appropriation. Representative Insco has been a big leader on this as well, and we really appreciate your leadership. I think that shows you just keep it at a current level, and that's 5 years ago. Keeping it at that level took a tremendous amount of effort. And Brian played a big role in working with representatives from all 100 counties as part of the North Carolina Public Transportation Association. So that's a real example of how important it is that we all work together across the state. A couple other things. So we will continue to try to protect SMAP. I feel pretty good about that right now. Another issue around transportation, and again, Michael, you mentioned this briefly, the challenges NCDOT and the state transportation program, the STIP, has faced tremendous challenges, both from inflation, some poor estimates, and a variety of other things. There are projects that people are counting across in our cities that are all being pulled off the list because of those challenges, those financial challenges. We do see an opportunity with working with the business community in the state to see if we can capture sort of expanding the use of user pay. And I think Mayor Heminger mentioned this in an email to the delegation earlier this spring. The idea of capturing the sales and use tax generated by transportation. So when you get a repair done and you buy a part, the sales tax that's collected for transportation related activities would be devoted to transportation. That's important because A, we've lost ground on the funding because of inflation and some of the challenges they're facing at DOT. And then the second thing is, over the coming years, we're going to see the gas tax, which is one of our primary funding sources, will be reduced. The revenues will be reduced as electrification and the efficiency of vehicles improves. So we really need to look at other funding sources. Transportation costs aren't going to go down. The revenues will. So we're hopeful that we might be able to direct those sales and use taxes associated with transportation to the transportation budget and focus on the investments around developing an urban transportation system, which the STIP does a very good job of. So that's an opportunity. That may be as much as $500 million a year. I think you will see legislation introduced shortly coming from the Senate on this topic, and I look forward to working with the delegation on that as we go forward. The other thing I'll mention on transportation, we are going to continue to focus, and Representative Alston, the entire delegation has been a big leader on rail, passenger rail, both commuter rail and intercity rail. There's a tremendous amount of dollars at the federal level. There's a lot of activity at the state level, and we're very hopeful that we'll be able to continue to grow that in North Carolina. The last thing I'll just mention is affordable housing. There are some real opportunities, and Representative Meyer, you mentioned this at the top of the meeting. There's some real opportunities. This is a statewide issue for the first time ever. I think we could see some progress in that arena. It's a challenging topic because it requires money, but there's some opportunities that we look forward to there. And I'm sure Aaron will mention in a moment the heirs property legislation, House Bill 367, which we're very excited about. It's particularly helpful, and she'll describe that a little more in a moment. But we think that's also a piece of legislation that can help both in revitalizing communities as well as helping with the quality of the naturally occurring affordable housing in communities all across the state. So I'll stop right there. And Aaron, do you want to present it? And maybe we'll take questions after Aaron's finished.
All right. Thank you, Bo. Mayor Heminger, thank you so much for the invitation, for you and the whole council, the staff in Chapel Hill, as well as the legislative delegation. It's really good to be with y'all today, and I've learned a lot listening to these updates and appreciate the conversation. I'm Erin Winia. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the North Carolina League of Municipalities, which is the statewide association that represents all the cities and towns in North Carolina. And we've been working hard during this, 2-month interim to predict what we might see in the General Assembly this session that is of importance to cities and towns. And so Bo has done a great job of previewing a lot of what we've really been talking about as a team. I will first go back to the topic of land use. And in my mind, I also include issues like the one that you were describing, Mayor, about this water dispute, or maybe not dispute, but just it's a difficult situation. And these are the types of things that do bubble up and become statewide bills that are really written to address a very specific issue in a local area, and then they become statewide and really can mess up the relationships across the state and the agreements that are in place, particularly to provide water service. Annexation is tied up with that. I think we all know that because typically most systems have a policy of requiring voluntary annexation in order to extend water service to that area. When you're talking about these areas that are in between jurisdictions and maybe are kind of expensive or difficult to serve, that's a problem. We have definitely been hearing from other places in the state throughout the interim of just these little types of flare-ups. They always involve water. They always involve a property that's maybe in the ETJ, and legislators are interested in passing statewide bills to address their local issues. And we have a great deal of worry about this situation as well as others. So I do look forward to working with you all on this going forward. One thing I'll just suggest, if the problem is money, there may be a way to cooperatively try to apply for some of the billions in grant funds that are out there right now for water and sewer that maybe can redirect some of the energy. Just putting that out there. All I know is what I heard on this call today, so I don't know all the details. Bo did a good job of mentioning this heirs property bill that the league membership has supported and is working to try to, with other partners, to try to get passed in the Senate this session. It did pass the House last year. The only known opposition, this is going to come as a shock to you all, comes from former Representative Skip Stam. He has some clients who benefit from the status quo right now, and that would be disrupted by this bill. But what the bill would do is it would give an easier legal pathway to resolving the very messy property ownership issues that can happen with these properties where, maybe it was that grandma owned the property and she passed away, but she didn't have a will. And so it passed to the heirs. And then by the next generation, suddenly we have a couple dozen property owners, many of whom don't live in the state. you all can picture this scenario. These properties often become vacant, and this bill, by providing an easier legal pathway to resolve those property ownership issues, would help get them back into productive use, and it's a more fair outcome for family members. It's a really good bill. Most other states in the Southeast have it. North Carolina does not. So we're working in the Senate to try to see that passed. If there are any changes, of course, it would come back to the House, and we would appreciate your support if that does come to pass. The last thing I'll leave you all with, the league is really excited that we seem to be beyond the worst of COVID, and that we have been able to restart our in-person events with city officials. And there's a big one that's coming up that will involve you all as legislators as well. It's our Town and State Dinner. It'll be held on Wednesday, June 1st in the Raleigh Convention Center, and your offices should have received invitations by now. We really hope you can go. If you remember what we did before COVID, this is going to look very similar. Seated dinner. Members of the council, you all, of course, are welcome to come, and we encourage you to sign up and come to Raleigh. Eat this meal. We're going to have surf and turf. I think it'll be a really good time. There's very little programming. Most of it is just about gathering and networking and having a good time with each other. So again, that's Wednesday, June 1st in the evening at the Raleigh Convention Center. Hope to see most of you there. Bo, thanks. Mayor, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Bo and Aaron, for joining us and for the updates. Aaron, I will share with you that we have a council meeting on June 1st that evening. I know, so I know whatever night of the week you pick for this, it would be somebody's council meeting, but that is a council meeting we have, although some of our council members might choose to go to this event instead, but we have important discussions on that night, so we'll see. But all right. I'm opening up the floor for any questions, comments people want to make. We have other updates we could give if representatives and senators are interested. I know Senator Foushee has a hard stop. Is there anything our staff wants to share or anyway, floor is open. We're just happy to have you here. Ms. Miller-Foushee.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to get some feedback from Senator Foushee and our representatives here regarding the recent housing supply action plan that the White House just put out and how that is going to impact the states and then trickle down to local municipalities.
I have to be honest, I haven't seen the White House's plan.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I've scanned it. I hadn't seen it as of a couple of days ago, and a reporter told me about it and sent it to me by email because it hadn't come across my legislative email, so I don't think that's come through. So I've only skimmed it, and I mean what I saw looks kind of ambitious in hopefully some really good ways, but I have not done a deep dive on it or research on it. But my recollection is it includes the kinds of direct assistance to homeowners and renters that are still in great need, but also some seem like some interesting ideas around financing and kind of working with financial stakeholders that I think is going to be important, an important piece of this puzzle of addressing housing affordability and the crisis that we're all in. So that said, I have not read it in great detail, but look forward to once I have a solid couple of hours to do it. So I'd be interested in your thoughts if you've done a deep dive on it.
I've done a deep dive on it. I have looked over it. One of the things that really jumped out for me was I was very pleased to see the interaction between housing as well as transit. And, listening to our conversation here today, that's really, really important. I know some of the challenges that we are facing in Chapel Hill around affordability. We have folks, driving into town because they can't afford to live here. And then, challenges around having the capacity with transit to really, make our transit more robust in terms of its capabilities to handle our needs. And so I was very pleased to see that was a part of this action plan, and also looking at some of the financing gaps and willingness to fill some of those gaps that I think we could really learn from. I was really happy to see that we're also doing stuff locally around land use, using town-owned land to help with cost mitigation for affordable housing. They're going to be doing the same on on a federal level with those things. And so it was some really great parallels and real affirmation on some of the efforts that we're doing now around housing. And they also, spoke to issues regarding our mobile homes and stuff. So just really excited I know some of you have been on the campaign trail, so I totally get it if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but really looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of it. And Representative Austin, you're correct. It's very ambitious, but it looks promising. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the extent, it's could provide a good roadmap for us, especially going into next year's long session. And, I'm certainly all ears, but thanks for bringing that up.
While Senator Fucci is still here, I wanted to share that we always appreciate when you fight for us to retain local control in all kinds of ways. And to that topic, the Metro mayors, we've been staying away from any tree ordinance language. We don't want to lose that. Chapel Hill's actually in good shape because it's in our charter, but we know this is a controversial subject at the state level for some reason, but with climate action, with local control, we really value being able to keep our community as green as possible. And so I just share that with you. So thank you. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Representative Meyer.
It's okay. I was just going to say in response to hearing that from Councilmember Miller Fucci that I do know that the White House and the governor's administration are in weekly contact about many of the White House's initiatives and the way that they would impact North Carolina. I think they have both policy and political goals with making sure that North Carolina is taking advantage of everything they're trying to do. And so I will talk to folks in the governor's administration that I talked to about some of those other things about the housing plan as well, and would definitely look it over, and we'll try and let you know what I can learn from those conversations.
Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I wanted to, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought I was muted, but I'm not. I first just wanted to share that we are doing some work around housing needs assessment that we've had done. We're trying to link that with kind of what we're calling complete neighborhoods, and really trying to also, you all may or may not know that we're doing a major rewrite of our land use management ordinance. So I think it will be helpful for us to also know what's happening at the state level that might impact that as we go along. But my question was really just, are there, sometimes I feel like as a council member, I know less than I used to about what's happening at the state level because I'm trying to keep track of what's happening at the town level, so in such a detailed way. But I was just wondering if there are things that you think we should keep our eyes on. Are there things that you anticipate coming up in the short session that may impact us in positive or negative ways? Just hoping you can share, since I'm a little on the micro focus at this point. Just what are things we should be looking out for, and what might be good news, or we usually get bad news, but good news would be great. Whatever y'all have to share.
Aaron, do you have things you want to share? Because I know I saw the list yesterday of all the different bills that are out there, and there's too many to do in a short session. So I'm not sure what's coming forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going around, yesterday was the first day of the legislative session, and it was not very busy, but our team was in the building and we were making visits to legislative offices about the town and state dinner, actually. And I was talking with a legislative assistant who was saying that she had heard through the grapevine that the number of requests for bills that would typically have come in by now, because they've passed their deadline. So the requests have to have been in several weeks ago, actually. It's really low this session. And so I think what it speaks to is fatigue. I may be putting words in the mouth of legislators who are on this call, but they had a very, very long session, lasted for 15 months, and that was a lot of opportunity to get things passed. An upcoming election this fall that there's probably some desire to get back home and start campaigning for. And so, if ever there were signs pointing to a short session, I think this year is it. I'm not sure that any of us truly believe that, but what I would expect to happen is a month or maybe 5-6 weeks of pretty intense lawmaking, and then something that sounds like an adjournment, but really is just an adjournment to a date certain, and then they keep the session open until December, coming back as needed. And that could include, if there isn't a quick budget agreement between the two chambers and Governor Cooper, if they want to keep trying, maybe they send everybody home and they keep working on that budget behind closed doors for a while, bring everybody back in for a vote. We've seen that before. All of which is to say, I think at the league, we see evidence of less activity than would typically be the case at the start of a short session. And we're just not sure, if there's going to be a lot of this maneuvering about taking a bill, stripping out what was in there, and then putting new language in. That's another way around some of these bill drafting deadlines. So it's a time that I think makes everybody anxious because your antenna really has to be up, but you don't know for sure what's coming, at least as to cities. I know there's some other issues out there that don't affect cities that have gotten plenty of attention in the media. It's kind of a squishy answer. I'm sorry.
I think you read the tea leaves exactly right. So like, for instance, to your point about your last point about how they're going to do bills, the speaker sent 3 Senate bills to committee yesterday and made it very clear that none of those are about the bill as it stands now, that they're all going to be gutted and amended and introduced as a new bill next week when we hear them. So we have no idea what's going to be in them, and probably won't until maybe Tuesday morning or maybe Monday night at the earliest. The big issues on tap are the sports betting bill, the medical marijuana bill, the budget, leaving out, there's one other major thing. But what's an interesting dynamic that hasn't always been true in the past is that all of those pieces of legislation and Medicaid expansion as well are all Senate priorities right now. And so the House is trying to use that as leverage and saying that they're not going to move any of those major pieces of legislation unless the Senate negotiates with the House, and this is between Republicans, on major budget priorities. And as of yesterday, the House and Senate still hadn't even come up with a total spend number that they could agree to on the budget, which is usually the first piece of their budget negotiations. And so I think that what Aaron said is right. Like, I think we'll probably adjourn on June 30th, but whether we actually have a budget or not, who knows? And we'll just adjourn to a date certain. And any one of these pieces of major legislation could get done over the course of the fall or even after the election. Like, I think if we do Medicaid expansion, I think it's most likely to happen in a short or special session after the election rather than before the election.
So I think we're probably almost finished, but I just wanted to say that this will be my last meeting with you all as an elected official, and I'm looking forward to joining the citizens that watch our elected officials, and we'll stay engaged that way. Thanks so much.
We so appreciate your service, Representative Inscoe. You've represented our district admirably and fought for the values that we hold dear. And I know how personally involved you've been with Club Nova, and yesterday we had the Boys and Girls Club. You care about everyone, and so that's been apparent in the work you've done. So thank you so much for your service. All right, Ms. Berry.
Representative Inscoe, this is your last, and this is my first. I'm really honored to be able to serve this community in this role. And what moved me to seek this position was the crisis we have with housing and recognizing that it is not just in our town of Chapel Hill that it faces our larger community, our nation, and our world. We had visitors from Paris to come tour Community Home Trust properties just before I joined in 2014. I'm no longer with that organization, but housing remains critical. And it is incredible to talk with our constituents and hear some who don't realize that it's not just Chapel Hill. And I hear, why do we want more people to come to Chapel Hill? So what I pledge to you, our state representatives, is that I will continue to look for ways to work alongside our neighboring communities in our nation to address this problem that is shared by all. Really honored to be in this role, really grateful that you are in your roles. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Well, we so appreciate all that you're doing. I know there's going to be some transitions here. We promise to keep in touch with you, but I also extend the offer. There's anything you wish to know about, I'm happy to connect with you and share, or point you to the person who could tell you more about an item or information. We do count on Metro Mayors and the League to help keep us informed. Metro Mayors meets every other Friday, or it'll be every Friday during the short session, to keep abreast of what's going on and sharing good information. The League is always good about putting their updates out as well. And we so value them because, as Jess Anderson said, we're so focused on the micromanagement here in our community that sometimes it's hard. And I often say, when people ask me what's the most surprising thing when you took office of what you do, and I said, it's having to pay attention to what happens in Raleigh. And it affects us greatly. And so that's a bandwidth I wasn't planning on. And it's just wonderful to have support like all of you who talk with us and represent us well, but also with Metro Mayors and the League. It's very, very helpful. And my other mayor cohorts, I mean, we call and talk and share and commiserate at the same time. So appreciate all that. Well, all right. Well, and I'm sorry, did staff have anything they wanted to ask or share? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out. Well, we appreciate everyone coming and coming early. Next year, we hope to be in person, and we'll try to figure a date that works out well. It was just so hard to pick one with the primary that moved all over the place. And I know that was hard on you all as well. And so we didn't mean to pick it right after your session got started, but we do appreciate you spending and making time to spend with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
all for your
Thank
service.
you.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
Representative
everyone.
Joe.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everyone.
Good rest of your day.
Yay. Are we meeting Friday, Bo?